everyone is doing okay this Saturday. This video is going to be relatively quick. Me doing videos on the weekends, it's just choice if I'm here. The wife is gone. She's out with a friend, so I am here by myself. So I figured let's get into the studio, especially because there was big news while I was away. I was away for like a few hours, just yesterday. But there was news that I couldn't get to the studio in time to rushing in the rain, trying to look for any microphone that I could find. I have another video that I want to do after this of some of the reaction on MSNBC. They're not handling the news well. But have you heard Bob Mueller, has handed in his investigation. And like the reports were saying early on, where it was trying to tamp down expectations, prepare to be underwhelmed. And that, indeed, people were. 2 years. Mueller comes out and says there will be no new indictments. Now, an argument can be made that he's saying this because there's a trend where you don't indict the president of the United States, meaning maybe there is something on Trump, but they can't indict a sitting president. The problem is that if the goal of this was to find collusion requires more than one individual. Meaning, just because something may protect Trump doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't protect the person he was colluding with. So if there is not at least one person caught for this idea of collusion, then there's nobody for collusion. 2 years. 2 years. Do you understand that this has more consequences than just this kind of political expedience of using it to attack a political opponent? Mainstream media and the Democratic Party and even some indie outlets has gone with this idea that Trump was somehow working with Vladimir Putin, that Trump was an animatronic robot of Vladimir Putin's, that Putin had him by the purse strings. All of this had this very specific context. So everything that took place was looked at through that lens. The problem with this, everyone who was pushing this narrative had a dog in the hunt. Whether it was mainstream media or whether it was the Democratic Party, all of them had a dog in the hunt. They were incentivized to look at it through that very particular lens of Trump in Russia. Rachel Maddow was doing gangbusters. I would imagine CNN was probably getting his best numbers. The sitting president, traitor, foreign agent, Manchurian candidate, all this stuff, all of these words that were being used for two years. A complete and entire discrediting of the mainstream media and one political party. And by the way, I told you so. I was going to do a video that was going to be a mashup of the 1,000 times which I said I told you so, but I don't need to do that. Anybody that has watched my video and watched my channel knows I've been striding on that point. Donald Trump is now, which he should do, going to turn around and take that report, and he is going to beat the Democratic Party and mainstream media over the head with it. 50% of the American population believes that this was a witch hunt. 50%, half of the country. That means that there's a large share of independents that also fit into that mold. If you got every last Republican and a few independents. But here's the thing. I think it was a witch hunt. I'm not a Republican at all. I'm not a Democrat. I don't know what I am. But even I think it's a witch hunt. I'm making a point that across the political spectrum, you have some leeway where people look at this and say, okay, these guys were going after him. And the first thing that Trump is going to point to and say, their investigation showed squat. I told you that this was a witch hunt. I told you. They've gone after me for 2 years with this slow bleed. I've told you it was a witch hunt. They've said that I was working with Russia. I told you I was not. And I've just been vindicated by the prosecutor that they assigned. The wild part about it, the weapon here is, in an odd way, not so much, it's an odd weapon. Because the weapon is not so much that Donald Trump can use the witch hunt thing for anything in particular, meaning as an affirmative or assertive weapon. It's more so a weapon of discrediting. It's not an affirmative. It's a they're liars and were playing political stunts. And for 2 years, they've engulfed this country in a saga that was all a conspiracy theory. It's all a conspiracy theory. Accord the Immortal. Good afternoon, Jamal. What's happening, Accord? I hope everything is okay. I have another video that I want to do after this, and I don't want to keep this one long. I just wanted to make one video saying, I told you so. I've been telling you so for 2 years. When things come up, just keep in mind, I told you so. And by the way, it's not that I have these magical powers or anything. In the same way that those guys were incentivized to take the other point of view, I looked at this as a Trojan horse. I looked at this with the context of history and some of the stuff that gets pushed on to the American public. I looked at this from the standpoint of what are the incentives of the people in this process. And yeah, mainstream media has a dog in this hunt. The Democratic Party has a dog in this hunt. Some of the lefty indie outlets has a dog in this hunt. The fact that they hate Donald Trump's guts. It's kind of like with Obama. They didn't care whether he was a Muslim or not. They just would say the word Muslim. In this case, they were very much incentivized to look through the world, through that lens of Donald Trump is colluding with Russia in some way. And Robert Mueller has just set that world on fire. Occurred the Immortal. Greetings from your Republican friend this fine day. Oh, what's happening? Republican friend. Hermetic. Yeah, this was a version. Agreed. Garden Gnome. It was always about Trump's financial crimes. This was the new line I'm hearing. Yo! Do you remember, what did Bill Clinton get impeached for? And not just what did Bill Clinton get impeached for. What was the original inciting crime? Like I said, something else I said early on, was that the point of this wasn't necessarily to find collusion, because there was no collusion. The point was that it allowed you to politically get into other areas that Donald Trump probably did not want you to get into, like his finances. All of this started with this idea of Trump in collusion with a dodgy dossier. I would also put to you that for 2 years, they've put out a conspiracy theory. And for something that's this big to be this entirely wrong, shouldn't the question be asked, how did this start? How did this start? Like, what did they use in order to start this particular conspiracy theory? I am not as, when you talk to Democrats about what took place during the Obama years, particularly with regards to Hillary Clinton during the election, and if you make the point to them that, look, the incentives in that situation was for them, meaning the Obama administration and people within that administration, to work to the degree that they can work to assist their candidate in getting elected. I mean, clearly they don't want Trump elected. Clearly they didn't want Hillary Clinton locked up. And it seems that there were elements where Loretta Lynch didn't keep her word. And again, this not keeping her word thing of being outside of the process, meaning taking the word of the prosecutor. Well, we've just found out that that Comey page, that they were trying to get the Attorney General to on charges, meaning for Clinton on charges. I'm saying this in a poor way, but this notion that Loretta Lynch was going to be hands off and was going to accept whatever was going to come up because she has an association with the Clinton camp, or she has an association with the Obama camp, seeing that Obama appointed her. And then you find Comey saying, well, she's getting me to talk about the case in the terms of the Clinton camp. That should be a red flag. That should be a severe red flag. Now, does Comey come up and tell everything? Maybe not. But at the very least, in that very particular point, Comey is making the point that Loretta Lynch is pushing him. The question becomes, how far has she pushed him? And why do you believe that she wouldn't necessarily say anything else behind the scenes? Like, I am not in this thing of, no, the Obama administration wouldn't have done anything to assist Clinton in getting off while simultaneously getting Trump on. The moment that you look at this case and say, well, this was somewhat nonsense. This was somewhat of a conspiracy theory that they used to get Donald Trump on. And you find that the same people that got Donald Trump on were the same people that got Hillary Clinton off. This smells. This smells. This absolutely smells. Tony Wig. The more we dwell the distraction, the more effective it is. Not was. This video is proof of concept, the distraction. Whether or not it's true, I don't care. There's a massive corruption about. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? I'm articulating something that seems to be massively corrupt. Now, your thing is, well, I don't care whether it's true or not. It's a distraction. Yeah, but you still have to articulate it. And just because you get it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone else gets it. There might be some people who sat here and like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. Just saying. Just saying. All right, I'm going to end this because I have another video. Immediately after. Oh, God, that's funny. Honeypot. Gardner, my question is how much cash and hookers it took for Putin to buy off Mueller? Because that's what they're going to say, right? Mueller is a Putin puppet and a Putin agent. He's also working with Donald Trump in order to subvert democracy. Yeah, that's exactly what's taking place. I'll end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the content through PayPal and Patreon if you find yourself always coming back here. Also, the Patron Appreciation Show is going to be tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, like normal. I'm trying to get Aaron Matei on the show. He said he was going to be on the show today, but I haven't heard anything else from him. So there's that. Cynthia McKinney is going to be on the show on Monday. And there is another guest that's coming on the show, but I have to confirm the date before I say anything about it. So I end this here. I'll see you guys in like 10 minutes. Thanks all. Bye-bye.